Mother 3 is a game that I find to be a very interesting object of discussion. I'm fairly certain it's the game I've made the most videos about on my channel. However, due to a combination of being a much less adept analyst when those videos were made, and also due to the sheer depth that Mother 3 has, there is still so much more that I can say about it. It's simply one of the best. In this particular installment of Arcagent Everlasting Talks Your Ear Off about Mother 3, I will be analyzing how the game discusses something that I think many people look over when talking about it, as is the case with most of its political nuances. The means it frames and discusses the nature of capitalist realism. In an extremely simplistic and broad sense, capitalist realism is the artistic idea that there is no alternative to capital present in any works that people can consume. After all, that is part of capital's game. It has constructed a neoliberal society such that there is no other framework that can even be imagined by its inhabitants. It's why capitalism is the default system of governance in almost any form of art you engage with, no matter how fictionalized or abstracted. It's the status quo. You may be thinking, how does Mother 3 apply to this? Mother 3 deliberately does show an alternative system to capitalism. The game starts off with an idyllic commune, and we spend the first few hours getting to know what that world is like. This is, of course, all upended when capital does arrive and fascist forces take the commune with extreme militaristic power. So, Mother 3 itself does not fall into the trap of capitalist realism, it having portrayed an alternative society to capital, but it certainly portrays the ideas of capitalist realism throughout its text and discusses them. With every society, even those divorced from Porky's direct influence specifically, falling victim to capital in some way as they develop. One that was already a victim of capital even before the events of Porky's takeover were the ghosts of Osahe Castle. In Osahe, ghosts exchange goods with each other using a currency of rotten eclairs. When we enter this ecosystem as Duster, this economic balance has already been established. The ghosts of Osahe are one of the first hints to the political framework of Mother 3's larger chronological scale. That being that Tazmily village existed only as the residual of a long-standing history, a human world that had succumbed to mutually assured destruction due to the end goals of capital. These ghosts then hang on to capital in any way they can through silly signifiers. They are the old guard. They are the lingering societal ideas that Porky's forces will exploit when he comes to Tazmily. It is even more ironic then that the ghosts are also later rounded up and shoved into a tiny room, betrayed by the systems of abuse that they couldn't help but cling to, even in death. The next society that we meet in Mother 3 that exhibits these ideas is one that is rather minor in the grand scheme of things. We don't really know the moles in Mother 3 for more than a few screens, but in those few screens, we learn a lot about them. These moles are a culture that fetishizes the workday, a species that is obsessed with its own continual labor. Their presence in the story largely exists to tie into a greater idea of distorting imagery from Mother 2, but it also applies here. We don't know how these moles became ensnared in the maze of capital, of these ideas of intermingling productivity and worth, but it is an aspect of their culture that exists, another dark reflection of the systems of oppression that echo throughout the lives of the main character and his party, that not even the creatures who burrow under the ground are safe. Our final object of discussion for today is the one that has the most narrative weight throughout the story. The mole crickets of Mother 3 are shopkeepers. They buy and sell items in Chapter 7. They saw the opportunity of the rise of capital as a means for them to gain more power in the world, and they took it, unable to imagine any alternative. The mole crickets, much like any other populace under siege by capital, could not see any other solution than to allow themselves to get swept in the tide. They saw an opportunity for survival and they took it, even if it perpetuated the systems that were getting them and their brethren killed and experimented on in the first place. The mole cricket is scrappy, the mole cricket is opportunistic, and most importantly, the mole cricket is doomed just as everyone else in the Nowhere Islands is. None of these groups are spared. When the world ends, when everything is destroyed by the ultimate end goal of capitalist totality, all three of these groups go along with it, and the humans that ended up restarting this. Mother 3 portrays capitalist realism as not only an inevitability of life under capital, but a harrowing conclusion to the stories of so many cultures. The ghosts cling to ideas of private ownership and productivity right up until they're all cramped in a single bathroom stall to make room for an ever-expanding population. The moles in the ground work themselves to death every day solely because it's what they know. The mole crickets find opportunity in the rise of these systems and take advantage of it as a form of war profiteer only for them to be left behind when all is said and done. They all end up the same. They all become a part of a larger capitalist monoculture, their individual traits sanded down and lost to time. Mother 3 is about a lot of things, a harrowing depiction of contemporaneous human existence. However, there's another thing that Mother 3 is about that is particularly striking: an empty hope, a strong hope, but one that is totally devoid of any basis in experience or reason. It is a distant plea to believe in humanity even though everything seems bleak, believe in revolution even though the forces of capital have made it such that nothing else seems like even an option. There is so much more to the human condition than this, no matter how trapped we may feel. And that goes for dead humans, or moles, or mole-like crickets, too. This has been Arcade Everlasting, who has still barely scratched the surface of Mother 3, signing off. Thank you for watching.